Everyone. Do you all like Mondays? I used to hate Mondays. Now I don't mind them. In fact, I kind of enjoy them, especially these Mondays when I get to come here. I have been given the honor to introduce our guest speaker today, Roxanne Ebert. She is our neighbor from across the street. She owns Ebert's Emporium. And if you haven't been in there, I encourage you to go in because she has a lot of pretty and very interesting items. But that's not why she's here today. She's also very knowledgeable about Native American cultures and traditions. And that's what she's going to share with us. And I need to point this out. She has already contributed to the museum by loaning us 2 Native American dresses that are on display at the Trail of Tears exhibit. It's my understanding that these dresses have seen powwow duty, so maybe we'll hear about that. So, Ms. Ebert, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Monday morning is my Saturday, and I'm thrilled to be here to just give you a little bit of insight and information. Through this area, of course, we had the Trail of Tears, which, when you look back at what has happened in our country, it was really a very sad experience. 1830, Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act. Through this land, thousands of Indians were removed from their homeland. People often ask, why were they removed? Well, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Seminole, they were doing very well, very well. They had rich farmland, they had gold, they had plantations, they had slaves. And Europeans, or European extracted Americans, wanted this for themselves. They decided that they were a primitive culture and that they were not deserving of what they had. So the Indian Removal Act was signed. You'd be surprised how many people went on this trip. The Cherokee at the time were very assimilated into European American culture. Surprisingly, John Ross, who was the principal chief of the Cherokee at the time, was a very, I would say, genteel plantation owner. He was descended of Scots and Cherokee. I mean, the Cherokee people were very advanced. They had their own syllabi, their own syllabus, their own language, their own alphabet. The Constitution of the United States was actually based on Native American doctrine. Something to think about. The Smithsonian had, and does right now, have an exhibit at the River Discovery Museum. Thank you. Has anybody been up there to see that? It's quite interesting.
And they have QR codes you can
Right.
scan and see, hear more details.
It is very interesting, but the one thing I didn't like about it was you can't touch anything. And I'm a big believer in tactile experience. I do presentations for 5th graders mostly, because in 5th grade in the state of Kentucky, there is, the history lesson is on Native Americans. The history lesson is for the Trail of Tears. A lot of things that they don't teach you about is how the government of the United States took children, wrenched children from their homes, from their parents, from their grandparents, and put them in boarding schools to indoctrinate them into the American way of life. And what they tried to do was assimilate Native culture into Anglo culture. It was a very harrowing time for young people. for their parents, for their grandparents, because family units were very, very important in Native culture. A lot of people think that the men ran everything, because that's a very patrilineal way of thinking. But in most Native cultures, actually, the women took care of business. You did not go to war without the say-so of the grandmothers, the elderly women. You didn't make any great changes to your community without first consulting. And if a woman wasn't happy in her marriage, all she had to do was take his stuff outside and say, we're done. And she was a free woman to do what she wanted. And he had to either go back to his mama or go to the single men's quarters. And there wasn't anything he could do about it. Women were highly regarded because they were the givers of life. And this was very important. I started my love for powwows in 1981. I went to work for the Cocopah Nation in Somerton, Arizona, south of Yuma. And I was their first tribal nurse that their tribe ever hired. I did home health care. I had a small office, but most of the time I went to the people. I went to their homes. The Cocopah at the time were the poorest tribe in the nation. Lyndon Johnson was very embarrassed when Look magazine did an expose on the Cocopah. They were living in stick and mud homes, dirt floors, cardboard, sometimes pieces of tin. It was very embarrassing for the Johnson administration. So they went in and they built brick ranch houses, which kind of struck me as a little odd. It really didn't go with the landscape or the culture, but that's what they did. The Cocopah believed that when you pass away, that everything you owned and everything that was yours should be burned along with the body. They did open cremation. So the first couple times they tried to burn down the brick ranch houses, the government stepped in and said, wait a minute, you can't do this. These need to go on in perpetuum. So the elderly people that I took care of still lived in stick and mud homes, which made nursing care just a little bit difficult because there wasn't electricity or running water. So out in the middle of the desert, 114 degrees in the shade, I would take a huge orange drink cooler full of warm water so I could do foot baths, diabetic care, wound care, and things like that. Oftentimes with a flashlight because there was no electricity in the huts. It was a very enormous eye-opener for a young woman who had spent her childhood in Europe, her formative years in New York City. I had never seen despair like I did on the res. September of last year, my husband and I went back out there for a visit. And I'm here to tell you, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. They do have a casino. They have money coming in. But who runs the casino but foreign people? And does the money go back to the community? Not really. The tribal building is new. All the doors are locked. It's not like it was when I was there when you could walk in and see anyone. Now you have to go through security. There's plexiglass everywhere and locked doors. So have the Cocopah people achieved more since I was there in the 1980s? I don't think so. I think it's very sad. Powwows in this area are mostly to honor the Cherokee and the removal. And of course, Cherokee weren't the only people. Choctaw, Seminole, several tribes were removed for their land and property. The dresses back here, the red one is what's called a Cherokee tear dress. And a lot of people think it's a tear dress for the Trail of Tears, but it's not. It's called a tear dress because women were not allowed to have knives or scissors. So they had to tear the calico and material in order to make the dresses. This was made by Tina Haley Ellis, a dear friend of mine. And I wore this at many powwows. The hide dress, because the Historical Society said, well, what did they wear prior to having fabric and calico that the Europeans brought? Well, they wore hide. This is called a 3-hide dress. It is very traditional. It is all hand sewn. Unfortunately, it's with artificial sinew because working with real sinew is kind of a booger. And I know this because I made this dress. It's a very traditional pattern. There's only 3 pieces to it. You have a small hide on the top, which is the cape, and 2 hides, one for the front and one for the back. And yes, I have worn that to powwow. Traditionally, it was the soft side that went out, not the smooth leather side. And most people see from the movies that it's the smooth leather side that's on the outside, but that is not traditionally correct. The skirt that I have on is Seminole. And those ladies of you who do patchwork will see that this is done very teeny tiny places of patchwork. And I actually found this in Paducah, Kentucky. And when I looked at it, it was, I was just like so happy because it was my favorite color. And it looked like it was big enough for my voluptuous self. And then when I saw the price, I said, well, I have to have it. I have worn this to powwow numerous occasions. Now, a Seminole lady would not wear it with a top like this. A Seminole lady would have a sheer cape, usually on the top. I have several dolls up here that have the clothing of different cultures. I have Navajo, I have Seminole, I have Apache, I have Cherokee, I have Plains, and I have Cocopah and Iroquois. And you can see the influence of Europeans on a lot of the dress. The Cocopah people, before Europeans came, and Spaniards were the first who came there, and they came actually from the West. The Cocopah people wore yucca skirts, and that was it. The men just wore a belt and a loincloth, and that was all. But when missionaries came, women were told that, you know, they were immodest and they needed to cover up. Well, the Cocopah women really covered up, kind of like Hawaiians. I mean, they had the long sleeves, they had the high collars, but they wanted to express themselves. When I was working on the Cocopah Reservation, I was gifted many pieces of beadwork, and I also bought many pieces because it was one way that I could help support my community. This is a lace collar. The women who were traditional wore lace capes. They came all the way past the breast, down the shoulders, and they're exquisite. The lady who made this was one of the most quiet women you'd ever want to meet. But if you saw her, you would probably stare. The Cocopah believed that you could not get to heaven without a tattoo. It was part of their culture. And Victoria Huck's whole face was tattooed. I thought it was very interesting that right in the middle of her forehead, she had a Star of David, and on her chin, she had the cross of Jesus. I thought that was very interesting. She was a very quiet woman, but she was very prolific with her beadwork, and she taught so many young women to bead. This is one of her granddaughter's necklaces. She was 12 when she made this, and she brought it to my office, and she said, oh, I want to make a gift to you. And when somebody offers you a gift, you don't say, oh, well, let me pay you for that, because it's very rude. But what you do is you offer a gift in return. So that's what I did. Several of the pieces up here actually I have made. This was one of my first hands at beadwork, and it's a knife sheath that I wore at powwow. My father was a career soldier. He spent 2 tours in Vietnam, and this is his veteran's bag that I made. The beadwork here is for the patch that he wore in Vietnam, and this is his campaign ribbon from Vietnam. I actually got my father to come into the circle and dance and honor Veterans Dance, and made me very proud. For here, this is my dance shawl. A lady should not go into the circle at powwow without a shawl. If you're in regalia, and it's not costume, it's regalia, a lady would usually carry this over her arm. If you're not in regalia, you would cover your shoulders and wear it in. It has a beautiful piece of beadwork on here of a red-tailed hawk and a medicine wheel that was done by my friend Red Kirby, who's passed. The necklace is bone. This is Plains Indian. And this was made by another elder who had passed. This is my dance belt. It's made with beads and rawhide and bone. The sheath is empty of a knife because you don't want to draw blood in the circle. That's a very bad thing to do. Thank you so much. These were gifted to me by Nikki Laughing Otter, who was a Vietnam War veteran and a Cherokee lady who still lives in North Carolina. And I'm very proud of this. I also have a pair of moccasins that go with it, but I just didn't pack them. I have over here a little girl's buckskin dress. So this is from the Plains. And you can see it's been well loved and well worn. I have 4 granddaughters, 2 of which wore this, 2 who didn't. And they went into the circle. It was a very proud grandmother moment to have them come in. A young lady or a woman also needs to carry a fan. This is my turkey fan. I made this probably 30 years ago, so it's a little bit on the old side. And I thought I brought the girls' fan here, but I don't know what I've done with it. On the table, there's also a beaded crown. Most powwows have a princess, okay? And they either get a silver or beaded crown. And a powwow princess is supposed to personify all that is good in a woman, a young woman. She should be courteous to her elders. She should be kind. She should know how to cook. And she should know how to take care of business. I'm the proud owner of 3 teepees. And I have a 22-foot, an 18-foot, and a 16-foot. And when I first got it, it was like, oh my gosh, I've wanted one since I was 5. And I bought it from the widow of a muzzle loader who was very into authenticity. I have never seen one put up before. When I bought it from her, it was, of course, all wrapped up in a big 80-pound canvas bundle. The first time I tried to put it up was a bit frustrating. I had a book. We didn't have YouTube back then. My book said, okay, set up your tripod and put all your poles in the tripod and then blah, 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 blah. Well, let me tell you, putting up a tripod, it's not that hard. It just takes a good length of rope and somebody to put their foot on one of the poles while you lift. And then you open it up. Putting the other poles in the crotches was not so easy. It took 6 times before we got the teepee up. Before too long, My friend Tina and I could set up a teepee in 20 minutes flat. Not bad for two old fat girls. We were very proud. And it was so tight you could pop a quarter off of it. My dad was proud of that. When things got a little rough, I had to have a little bit of help. Came to powwow one night, very late, dark, nobody around. And it was either, okay, so do I sleep in the truck and put up the teepees tomorrow? Or what do I do? Well, I got my 16-footer out, and I actually was able to put it up by myself. I slept in the teepee that night. I was pretty darn happy. People came around in the morning, hey, this wasn't here when we went to bed. I said, no, it wasn't. And you were in bed. So I love teepee life. I was very proud to be able to show the kids in Christian County at the Trail of Tears powwow. For over 25 years I set up there. And every Friday was a day for the children to come from all the Christian County schools. It was wonderful. We were filmed by PBS for one powwow, the spiel that we gave the kids. And the kids like to touch things, and I'm a big believer in tactile. I like to touch things too. I don't like it when I go somewhere and they say, oh, do not touch that, because it just makes me want to touch it more. So everything that I brought today, I would like for you to see and touch. I want you to feel. Because usually I'm geared towards children and a lot of women. I don't usually bring guy stuff, but I do have some guy stuff here. I have a Plains war shield. It is probably 65 years old. It was made the traditional way. I have a Cocopah longbow. This was made of mesquite root. This was from the last fellow who made bows in the tribe. On the table I have an otter quiver, and that's where you put your arrows. And it is plain style. This is called acoustic. And back in the day, before Europeans came, when Indians fought each other, it wasn't so important to kill someone as it was to touch them. That was a greater honor. So some guys would touch them with acoustic because they really didn't want to get that close. I also have up here a buffalo lance. And this was made after Europeans came because of the metal in it. So I would like you guys to, when you're done with your meeting, to come up, touch things, look at things, ask questions. I had a presentation all set up here, and I didn't follow any of it. So, do you have any questions for me? Yes.
Years ago, I went to witness a large powwow in Oklahoma City called Red Earth.
I have been to Red Earth Powwow. Yes, ma'am.
And somehow, some way, the spectators, we were told, you can go and participate, but you have to know what you're doing. I remember that you have to know what you're doing. So I think it was some kind of orientation. If a spectator wanted to participate, they put them through.
Well, usually at powwow, and I have been to Red Earth, that is humongous.
Yeah.
It is really big. Usually at powwow, the arena director will tell people whether or not they can come in. Intertribal is usually the time when everybody can come in and dance together.
if I went down, what would I have to have done to participate, or is it fair?
Be honorable. Never take pictures of somebody without asking permission. Don't touch someone else's regalia. Don't get in the way of other people. Basically, it's a very respectful thing. And sometimes you will see things at powwow that, even if you've been to a lot of powwows that you've never seen before. I once saw a woman going counterclockwise. The powwow arena is always in a circle. You always come in the east. always. That is traditional. The sun rises in the east. The east gate is where you go in to dance. When you set up your teepees, your doors face east. And there's a reason for that. You greet the new day as it comes. The thing about the knife, you don't ever want to draw blood. If somebody drops any piece of the regalia, you definitely don't want to touch it, but you can inform the arena director. When a feather falls from someone's regalia, it's indicative of a warrior falling. So prayers have to be made, offerings have to be done before the feather can be retrieved. And the feather is not given back, or the pouch, or whatever is lost, to the person who lost it, because they were not aware enough to take care of it. So it usually goes to the host drum, and they decide what happens to that piece of regalia or feather. But that's a very good question. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have Indian in your blood, or what triggered your interest in it?
Since I was a very, very little girl, I've been interested in Native American culture. I have wanted a teepee since I was 5. We used to watch Westerns all the time. I always rooted for the Indians. My father's grandmother was born in a teepee in Wright County, Iowa. According to family, she was Sioux. I have no idea. We don't have any recording of that. I belong to a Métis group of European and Native mixed people. And in order to become a member of this group, we had to have family history. My father wrote that family history and submitted it for me. My father was always very proud that he had Native American in him. And, you know, people talk about, well, how much of you is Indian? Well, you know what? If you got a drop of blood and you got it in your heart, that's a good thing. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people out here talk about their granny being a Cherokee princess, and Cherokee didn't have any royalty, y'all. There was never a princess that was Cherokee unless she was from a powwow. So there was nothing like that going on here. Yes.
Quick question, and I have to leave to get to 11 o'clock meeting, but I wanted to ask this. I'm in the school district, and we're currently working on our curriculum for Livingston County, and one of our grade levels has the Trail of Tears.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Livingston County Trail of Tears powwow.
Yes.
You've done some work with some schools, so we'd love to get your contact information and see if we could partner with you to really get this information for our students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you would like a presentation, I have plethora.
I was
of
just gonna
stuff.
say that it would be nice if we could put up a display and have kids come and see this and, you know, base it here and put it in and have them come and, you know, participate in it. That would be great.
Do they still have the Trail of Tears powwow?
Yes, traditionally it is the weekend after Labor Day every year.
But where?
It is in Hopkinsville, Kentucky at the Trail of Tears Park.
So it was this past weekend.
But
Yes,
if
the
we
weekend
didn't have a
before.
powwow.
Do they have that movie in that Trail of Tears Park? I know they do the one in Cape Girardeau. It's a fabulous movie.
I don't know what they have at their museum. They have a very small museum on site that's open year round there. The site there was a camping ground, and 2 of the very important male leaders actually are buried there. Of course, in Livingston County, you have a great historical site right down here at Mantle Rock. When I started going to Mantle Rock, there was just a dirt trail. There was no signage. You had to park in a field, and there was no signs that said you couldn't go here and you couldn't go there. I've actually climbed the mantle, you know, when I was young and nimble. I have left prayer sticks underneath it. I have been there with my friends who had a drum group, and we drum and sang. We've left offerings there. It's quite, it is a tragic place.
Have you ever been to the park in just north of Cape Girardeau?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
I would recommend you do that. They do have a fabulous movie there. And then they have the actual certificate where the ferry took the group across the river there just north of Cape. They've got it behind the counter.
Yeah.
You know. It's not out for everybody to see, but they have some wonderful docents there that if you start asking questions, they'll drink it off.
Oh, good. That's
But
always
that
good.
movie is excellent.
I've
And
not
the
seen
overlook
it.
is beautiful. It's worth the drive.
You know, and it's funny because what happened, has anybody here read the book Killers of the Flower Moon or seen the movie? They put people in Indian territory, which was supposed to be not very good land for growing or cattle. And it turns out there was oil all of it. And it made some very, very wealthy people, which I'm here to tell you, the Americans of the day were not thrilled about that. If you want to see an interesting historical fiction, it is an excellent movie. I suggest you don't drink anything unless you have a pause, because it's about 3 hours long, but it's really good.
There are several Livingston Countyans who moved out to that area and were in the oil fields and everything out there, just FYI.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all very much for letting me speak to you today. And I'll let you get on with your meeting. And if there's anything I can help you with or tell you about up here afterwards, just let me know. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.